rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Director Lopez, roll call.
Mr. Chair, see Commissioner Bolin,
Present.
Commissioner Duran,
Present.
Commissioner Metcalf,
Present.
Commissioner Peterson. I think she resigned. So just so you know, we put some ads out to get another commissioner. So
I saw that in Carol's email.
and Commissioner Bacon.
Present.
And Commissioner Federico is not here. All right, and Chairman Halby.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
All right. All right. First thing on the agenda, approval of minutes from March 10th, 2021.
I move that we approve the minutes from March 10th of 2021.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Old business. We don't have any. So on to new business. First item on the agenda, Cool PZ 210307, a major site plan for an RV self-storage site submitted by Hanson Engineering on behalf of Coolidge RV Storage, LLC, located on Arizona Boulevard between Spruill and Taylor Avenue in Coolidge, parcel number 205170300 and 205170555A. This is a public hearing. We'll open it for discussion. Director Lopez.
Chairman Halby, Commissioners, as you mentioned, this property is, just to give you a little history, it's zoned C3, General Service. So the use is allowed. It actually is 2.45 acres, kind of an odd-shaped parcel, but the zoning is correct, and we feel it's a good use of the land. It's consistent with the general plan, and we put all the setbacks. We have a site plan that's shown for your review, and staff recommends approval of the major site plan on the grounds that the proposed use is consistent. The general plan and the site design meets the requirements set forth in the zoning code. So, Jansen, do you have anything to add to it?
That page is updated.
Okay. All right, so just a couple things that will be needed. The parcel combination will be required whenever you have multiple parcels. A variance application will be needed to process to allow the zero side setback for the storage units adjacent to Dollar General's parking lot. So if you see on the map, site plan is provided, there's some that are zero setback, and we've done these before. We did it on the apartment complex up near the railroad track in Bacayan. We did the same thing. Fencing at the back of the sidewalk on Arizona Boulevard and perpendicular to the storage area shall be wrought iron or equivalent. So it's view fencing, so you can see through it. The billboard at the southeast corner of Arizona Boulevard and Spruill shall be removed. And so it's a plan that we feel is very nice, and Tim's comment is it will greatly improve the appearance of Arizona Boulevard, which we agree. And that'll help get more things down on the south side. We'd certainly like to see some things happen down there too. Got a lot in the north. We need the whole city to be redeveloped or fixed up. So anyway, we're here to answer any questions you may have. I know the applicants are here, so if you have any questions, we can answer them at this time, Tim and I. But I know there's a big need for storage because I tried to rent a small space and I went to all three. Nobody had anything. The one was open for a little while and it was gone. So last time one came up, I took it like, I did the same. I paid a year in advance. Cash. So.
Mr. Chairman, I have some questions.
Sure.
Is this going to be a block wall fence around all the exterior of the property at the back and sides?
Commissioner Bolin, all the areas bounding the residential, it's required to have a shown on the plan. The caveat is this: if the variance is granted for these storage units, they may have an option that those become the wall.
Right.
And the frontage fencing, noted to be wrought iron or equivalent, so you can see the landscaping that's behind it. That fence has to be there because of the depth of the basin.
Right.
So it's required. If a solution can be engineered to reduce that depth, that fence doesn't have to be there.
Okay. I'm only wondering about on the
But
west side
this
of the
will
houses.
still be block wall.
I'm
And
sorry.
these,
Yeah, okay,
all
that
of
whole
this.
area will be block wall. How high will that block wall be?
6 foot is the maximum allowed by code adjacent to residential boundaries. C3 allows up to 10, except when you're adjacent to a boundary. If they wish to do something beyond that, it would take a variance by council to do
Well, I'm
it.
just
But
thinking about the security precautions. They're gonna be holding and containing very valuable pieces of property in there if they're storing RV, which is what I would assume covered parking would be for. So having a higher fence or a fence that has wire on top of the block or something,
Glass in the block.
now we can't do that, Al.
Well,
I agree with it, but we can't do it.
barbed wire is not permitted here. You can only use it in the industrial zoning districts, so
Razor wire wouldn't work either then?
Nope.
nothing
Can't do
barbed
it.
wire or equivalent. The site will have security cameras and some security lighting and stuff like that that is shielded from the surrounding properties and just used to illuminate the site. I don't think it's on all the time. It may be motion activated. I don't know that for sure. Maybe the applicant can elaborate, but
Well, as a potential user of the site, that's why I'm thinking about the security and safety of it. If I put my $300,000 or $400,000 motorhome down there to store, I'd like to know that somebody can't hop over it. And the 6-foot wall they can hop over. The Coolidge PD has a, 8 or 10-foot wall around their parking area?
I believe the PD is 10. I mean, if they wish to do that, they can. It's not really required.
I'm
The
just
entire
looking-
storage area is gated, so if you stole an RV, you got to crash through a gate to get out of there.
24-hour access?
I don't know. That'd be a better applicant question. To get over this wall, you have to go through someone's yard first, too, to do it also. So,
But look at the yards you're surrounding.
Yeah.
but this is redeveloping area too.
Right, and I agree, and this is a great use for the property. I mean, I can't think of a better use for this kind of a piece of property than what they're gonna do.
Commissioner Bowman, I think your comment is, something the applicant may think about.
But they would be,
More of a business decision than a planning decision, though.
but
I
they
think.
would be allowed to do that if they brought it to a variance to us. They would be allowed to put a taller wall in if they wanted.
Commissioner Bowman, city council would have to grant a variance to allow anything higher than 6 feet.
Okay,
They become the Board of Adjustments, so that's
okay,
how they do
all
it.
right.
If they chose to do that, they could process a fence variance and the zero setback variance concurrently on the same thing and hear it, but it's really at their discretion. We can't require them to do something that code doesn't allow necessarily.
Right, I know,
But
I'm just,
I mean, I
I wanted
think
to
your
see
comment's valid, but
I wanna see if it's a valid option for them to do, or whether the city would not allow them to do it, so we don't know if the city would allow them to do it or not, till it goes to the council.
I wouldn't speculate on what council would do. From a staff standpoint, if this was something they wanted to pursue, we would absolutely support and recommend approval, but 5 out of 7 other people would have to agree with that, I guess.
Yeah, but, I
Yeah.
mean, to me, if I lived in that neighborhood, and there are some nice houses in that neighborhood as well as others, having a taller wall behind me that I don't have to look over the fence and see RVs or trailers or whatever they have stored there would be a plus to me. I'd rather look at a nice fence than I would to look at somebody's RV,
There's probably some residents who might agree with that.
unless, of course, I could live in it. Okay, that's all I had.
Chairman Helby. And I can testify that there's problems with people hopping over fences, because we had somebody hop over a fence and take the light strips off the back of a trailer that it's all neon, it's all, or LED, and it was just 2 bars, and it had, everything was in it. And those 2 light strips was like $500.
At Hohocom?
Yeah, and they come right over the fence and took them, and we almost caught them, but they got away. And there's nothing you can do. They run into that area, and there's nowhere you can't.
Too bad they didn't go over the southeast corner.
Yeah,
Outside the clubhouse, I don't think there's any security lighting or cameras throughout the park, are there?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've got security cameras all over the front of that park.
Yeah, well, I get it. You can't predict crime.
Well,
Rob
no, you
banks, but we
can't,
keep
but
'em
I'm
open.
just saying,
Like to
I
keep
know
honest
that,
people honest.
If it became an issue, they would probably absolutely pursue that, but
Okay,
it's an option and staff would support it.
that's all I'm asking.
I think
is
it-
an option.
Could reasonably be granted if that was their desire.
Well, and if they put additional storage units there, that would potentially be taller anyway.
Yeah, those units there do not have that wall doesn't have a 6-foot limitation because it's adjacent to a commercial
Right.
property. The restriction for the 6 foot is only adjacent to residential.
And the wall will be behind the retention basin towards the houses rather than in front of the retention basin?
This one here?
No, the retention
one.
basin at the back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's actually a block wall there now. The applicants own this property also.
But it also shows that dotted line there. Isn't that also a block wall on the front side of the retention?
Yeah, it's shown probably again because of the depth, but that may not be necessary because the rest of the site is fenced. It's kind of a building code safety thing. I'm not sure the answer, but that fence could potentially go away because the site is secure. The reason behind fencing those basins over a certain depth is so kids don't drown if it rains enough to fill it up. So
Or
once
that
every
would be
100
nice.
years or so.
It'd be nice if it filled up, not that people drowned. But I'd love to see it fill up full of water.
I would too, with the rest of them.
Everyone.
All right. Any other questions?
I have nothing.
Good. All right. At this time, we'll open it up to the public. If you'd like to come and speak on behalf of this, please step to the podium, state your name, address, and,
Or against it?
or against it. Yeah. No takers. All right. At this time, we'll close the public hearing, and we'll entertain a motion.
Chairman Halby, I move that we approve Cool PZ 210307 as presented
The zoning comments, if you would, Commissioner?
with the
Staff recommendations on
staff
zoning.
recommendations added to it.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next item on the agenda. Next item, Cool PZ 210306, a zoning code amendment to section 302, adding guest house alphabetically to the list of definitions. Director Lopez.
I'll be right back.
Chairman, Commissioners, yeah, this item is, all we're doing is amending the section in the zoning code. The guest houses are already allowed in agriculture, and agriculture has a minimum of 1 acre. So all we're doing is clarifying and adding the definition of what a guest house is. And as you can see from the staff memorandum, we looked at Pinal County, Florence, Eloy, Casa Grande, and we basically based the amendment on Pinal counties. And I remember back when I was at the county, I used to also enforce these, but so this will just give us a little more clarity on what could be. So it can't be on its own meter, and it can't be any larger than 45% of the floor area of the main dwelling. So we don't violate the density laws that have to do with zoning. So this allows a guest house. We've seen it on larger developments in the valley. I'm sure eventually we'll get this here, and I think Casa Grande's considering something like this. Also, we saw it on the same two things on their agenda were on theirs, I think, last week. So we're seeing more of this type of use on property. So this is strictly right now where this would apply is in ag zoning, but all we're doing here is amending the definition and adding one to it. Excellent. And we'll answer any questions you may have. You can see the different...
So why separate utilities?
So that it can't be... See, we want it to be a guest house to the main dwelling. If it's separate utilities, then it could be, an Airbnb or something, and it could be separated, and then it could be rented out separately. That's not what we're trying to create. We're trying to create like a mother-in-law house or some
Right,
sort
but
of...
if I get my mother-in-law to move in, I don't want to pay her utilities. I want her to pay her utilities.
And there are ways to measure the amount of electricity that's going back to the second unit, but we know that when we allow the two separate meters, it causes us a lot of problems in zoning and enforcement. So you'll see that it's probably something that's standard when they allow this kind of thing.
If you have two water meters, you'd have to have two sewer and trash bills as well.
Right.
So it wouldn't benefit you to do that. It would be a negative, rather just tell your mother-in-law to pay your electric bill. She won't, but tell her anyhow. I mean, it's a good theory. Heck, I give my ex-wife a whole house, so I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I'm just trying to get her to turn the TV off and close the door. I love her.
Good for you. I have no questions. I'm in full agreement with this. I have no problem.
Mr. Chairman, this also requires a public hearing, so...
Right. So, in here, we didn't say anything about cooking, where some of the others did, right?
What we did is the one from Pinal County said a range or oven and stove are not permitted.
Right.
We didn't add that restriction. We feel that with the other things that restrict it, like no separate meters, that it's not 45% of the floor area, there shouldn't be any problem with adding a kitchen. Because when I did it at the county, I knew full and well as soon as I left, they're going to put in a stove.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
be honest.
Okay.
But I knew that. And
I'm looking at Eloy's, right, and it says shall have no provisions for cooking, and it's like, well, then it's really not a guest house.
Yeah, so that's why we're trying to be realistic and allow that, because it's a guest home. So, if you have your mother-in-law and she cooks, if not, then what's the guest house for? So that was our opinion. Of course, if you have a different, you're welcome to amend it, change it, but that's how our thinking was, that it's fine to have it.
No, and I personally, I like the fact that it's not in there.
Yeah, I mean, we just left it off on purpose. That's one thing.
Because cooking can be misconstrued as a bunch of things.
Right. Yeah, hot plate, or
Right.
It's the Pinal County tried to do it with just
Mr. Coffee in the morning.
and that Pinal County restriction has been around since I was the chief inspector for the county in the 80s. So it's been there a long time, and I remember going to look at houses and I'd approve them, but I'd see where it would easily fit.
Stubbed.
But it was always there for an enforcement if something happened and they were using it as a rental and weren't supposed to. That's what it was there for. So, but we feel with what we have, we'll be fine.
Okay.
All right.
All right. This is a public hearing. Are we done?
I'm done.
We're done? Okay. This is a public hearing. We'll open it up to the public. If anybody would like to speak on behalf of this topic, please come to the podium. And again, no takers. 2 for 2.
Chairman Halby, I move that we approve Cool PZ 210306 zoning amendment as presented by staff.
Get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. All right. Next item on the list. Do I need to recuse myself for this?
I don't think so.
No, I don't.
If you were applying for a CUP, you would, but this is the code in general,
It's the whole city, and it's
not the applicant.
Okay,
and it's really an amendment to the
to the code.
code itself, not a specific for a specific property.
Very good.
So I think it's just in general. So
All right. Next item on the agenda, Cool PZ 201144, zoning code amendment related to outdoor marijuana cultivation. Director Lopez.
Chairman Halby, Commissioners, this is an item we've been looking at since for quite a while. Actually, is you know, we had the medical marijuana that was approved years ago, and then the voters approved recreational. So one of the things that we were looking at and we've been asked about is the outdoor marijuana cultivation. So this is a proposal that we're bringing to you to consider that would allow recreational marijuana on 5 acres and an outdoor cultivation. So most everything right now is medical is indoor. This could be medical or recreational, correct? At this point, yeah. So we would has it here that some of the requirements would be that only be allowed within the agricultural zoning district, not to exceed 5 acres in size. That's what we feel would work at this point. You know, later on, if they decide, you know, that we want to go larger, but I think that's a good starting point. That's just that's what we put out there, and that's it. So, Tim, do you have anything to add?
Maybe a little. So I think we've talked about this here before.
Right, we
And-
passed this once before.
Yeah, it did. It kind of got hung up at the next stage, but there were just some questions and some other things going on that they wanted to jive it all at first. We looked at some other places. Pinal County allows outdoor cultivation. Tucson, Camp Verde, Scottsdale, Winslow,
Safford,
and Benson, Safford also.
Benson.
I don't know if I have a complete list, and I don't know all the specifics to these places. County has a similar process as us. It's special use permit versus conditional use permit, but tomato. And they do have a limit of 5 acres on there, so we kind of mimic that. Right now, cultivation is allowed with the CUP in your industrial zoning districts, and maybe CP, Commerce Park.
I just thought I2 and ag.
Do you need a conditional use permit in an ag area?
Yes.
Yeah, all
Anything marijuana related.
it is allowed in CP. We don't have any Commerce Park really in town, but that zoning district allows marijuana uses, so that would fall under that umbrella. But we have restricted the outdoor cultivation strictly to ag. So in the industrial zones, the industrial park, or other places like that, a commerce, you're not going to be able to grow it outside. You're still going to have to stick with the indoor cultivation as it exists now. This is a separate and distinct conditional use permit from marijuana cultivation. We're defining it separately, and it is conditionally permitted separately. So if this is recommended for approval and council ultimately approves it, goes effective, anyone who wishes to do this who already cultivates still has to come back and apply for this use. Adds a definition, adds it to conditional use is in.
Why would they have to do that if they've already come to you and got a conditional use permit to cultivate?
Because their conditional use permit is for a marijuana cultivation facility, not a marijuana outdoor cultivation facility.
Well, under Arizona, the state guidelines, it's all one. It doesn't define indoor, outdoor, greenhouse.
Yeah,
It's not defined.
I know, but the cities have the option, or counties, to enact their own. We have a long list of definitions for specific marijuana activities. And each one it depends on how you apply it, I guess. The permits that exist out there now for marijuana cultivation are specific to the definition for cultivation facility, which is indoor. This is a different use. So,
Yeah, I think in this way, it's a good start to try to go out and allow the outdoor, and it's based on itself, its own merits, so to speak. Whereas I know the state has, we're talking zoning, so zoning controls land use in the community. So, it's strictly based on the use of the land, and the conditional use is designed to give the public input. And,
Right,
so that's why.
But the use was granted, and again, I'm only going from my own personal knowledge, right? The use was granted to a parcel.
Yeah,
That
specific use.
parcel now has been granted permission to cultivate marijuana. In what fashion they do is what you're trying to govern right now.
we have already governed that fashion.
Yeah, we already do.
Current cultivation specifically requires that it be done in an enclosed building, specifically, be located in a permanent building housing only one user or tenant, except that a dispensary or dual license dispensary must be in a permanent building housing. I don't know if this is the correct one, but if it's in a strip mall is where it's giving this exception. If you are in a strip mall with multiple tenants, you have to have minimum 6-inch masonry between you.
Right, and this is
all this stuff is to separate you from the tenancies on the side.
That's the dispensary, though. That has nothing to do with the cultivation.
No, all marijuana uses is the applicability of this development standard. This applies to all marijuana uses, period. The exception highlighted in here, that this isn't subject to C1 and C5, removes the permanent building and emit dust, fumes, odors, because it's outside.
It's outside.
I don't know how you mitigate that.
You don't.
Um,
You can't.
So this use accepts those two conditions. All other uses are subject to this.
So my fear is we are making it so stringent on marijuana, but yet there's no limitations on hemp. Right? A classic case in point was last year when this was brought before this council. This is an agricultural product. It has to get in the ground at a certain time. We didn't meet that time frame. We didn't make that cut. I planted hemp. I didn't have a fence. I didn't have any guards. I didn't have any security cameras. And I didn't have any problems.
But they're not the same thing. Hemp and marijuana are not the same product. So THC levels are different. So they're not the same. I know they look the same, they smell the same, but they're not the same product.
That's saying all magnolias aren't the same.
But I mean, that's what it is. So how it's perceived until the laws or the public says, it's a different product. So
We have different distance zoning and
I'm just looking
Security
at from a
requirements
business
for-
standpoint, right? And as a businessman that's in the industry, why would I jump through all of these additional hoops and costs when I don't have to?
and
you don't have to.
yeah, we're doing it for zoning and for land use, not
You choose to
for that.
apply.
Well, we encourage business, but within the zoning code. So.
Soda and beer, both fizzy, but they're not the same. And I understand your point. This recommendation has been, received input from a lot of different levels to get to this point. And staff believes that as written here could garner the support to get it passed. The commission may recommend modifications to what staff has presented. It is your prerogative. I'm not sure how far it gets.
How far it would get up the ladder before it got banged back at us?
I think we maybe bring it back again in a year, and like the last one didn't have a lot of this stuff in it, and we're here doing it again.
Well, and that's because it was lumped in with a couple other agendas, and they didn't want to pass them all, blanket pass. They wanted them one at a time. So we're here back again because they wanted them one at a time.
Chairman, you may recommend modifications as you see fit. And we will forward the commission's recommendation to council.
Shall we table this until you can take a look at what modifications need to be made? Or could we table this for a month?
You have the option to table anything.
Okay.
Yeah, we just got to table it at the council meeting on the 26th because it's already advertised.
Yeah.
But that's easy enough.
Ray, what is
No.
your main concern?
My main concern is I already appeared before the council. I already asked for a conditional use permit for my parcel. It was already granted, and now you're coming back and telling me that if I want to continue doing what I'm doing on the parcel that was already approved, I got to come back and get another approval. That's my heartburn.
Okay, that's what I don't understand. The approval you got was for an indoor facility?
It was for the parcel, to grow cultivate medical marijuana on that parcel.
We are not specifically talking about you.
Correct.
Right.
It is, yeah.
And
So,
we
yeah.
will
Yeah.
cease that as a use.
Or else you have conflict. If you're bringing up your business.
We have 3 cultivation permits issued in the city of Coolidge, all of which are required to be in a building per their conditional use permit.
Right.
Modification of a conditional use permit is required to come back to the commission and essentially run the same process that it did before. So, I mean,
Because you're changing the use permit for that piece of property from indoor to outdoor.
well, this use wasn't granted to anybody because this use
Wasn't legal.
doesn't exist now.
Yes.
It's not
You were
allowed.
granted
It was
a
prohibited.
specific use
Okay.
for marijuana cultivation as it was defined, which was in a building.
Yes.
So if I came in tomorrow and requested a permit for outdoor cultivation of marijuana, I would get a conditional use permit application, pay my fee, and come to this board to get a conditional use permit.
Commissioner Bolin, if you came in tomorrow, we would tell you there is no such permit.
Yeah, you
That's
could.
what I was gonna say.
Because it doesn't exist till we approve it.
It doesn't exist till 30 days after council approves it.
Okay.
Right.
So what we're doing
This is not, you can't do this. There's no application. We don't have a,
There's not a vehicle to get there.
yeah, we wouldn't even accept an application because you're applying, it's like if you tried to apply for a liquor license through my office. We don't do that. You know, so,
But what you're saying is, if we approve this and move forward with this, 30, 60, whatever number of
Yeah.
days, if the council approves this, I mean, both
Yeah.
parties,
And if.
then, in the future, a person that wants to do outdoor marijuana growth can get a permit to do so. A person that already has a permit to do marijuana cultivation on or in their facility will still have to get a new permit in order to do one on the outside, because the original permit only allowed indoor facilities, and now they want to change how they grow product, so they need to get a new permit, a new conditional use permit, because they're going to be doing the same thing differently. Is
Correct.
that basically correct?
In the inverse, if this went through and was granted and it was an allowable use through a conditional use permit, and someone applied for this and was granted, they can't grow it, they can't have buildings inside. They aren't granted marijuana cultivation facility, which is defined as in a building.
Okay.
They are two separate and distinct. If a brand new person came in and wanted to apply for a conditional use permit for a marijuana cultivation facility and marijuana outdoor cultivation, they could do this through one CUP, but they have to apply specifically for both uses.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense to me.
I mean, a marijuana dispensary is granted it for a dispensary. They can't grow pot unless
Yes, they can.
unless they got their permit for their facility as a medical marijuana dispensary cultivation facility, which is not the same as a medical marijuana dispensary. These are the definitions that are in the code. They are different uses. In the zoning districts where these are permitted, in ag right now, marijuana cultivation facility is the only use allowed. You can't do a dispensary, you can't do a kitchen, you can't do any of that. In the C2 and C3 zoning districts, you can only do a dispensary. You can't do a medical marijuana dispensary cultivation facility, just dispensary. In CP, was that said earlier, Commerce Park?
Yeah.
I1 and I2, marijuana uses are conditionally permitted. So any marijuana use which blanket covers these could be permitted in the I2, I1, CO zoning district. Dispensaries, dispensary cultivation, infusion, they would all be allowed in those districts, right?
It seems like to me that we made a decision a number of years ago in this city, both by this committee as well as the council, as everybody, to allow marijuana to be grown in our city limits under specific rules and guidelines, which originally was inside buildings. Now the state of Arizona has said if a place wants to grow it outdoors or indoors, that can be arranged and is allowable under the correct, if the rules allow it in the city, correct?
And,
Well,
and Ken,
Commissioner-
they didn't change. That's been the standard since they made the
Well,
rules.
That was a
We-
state standard, but not the city standard.
Correct. We, the city, have changed our standards.
So now we're trying to open up our standards more from what they were to more balance with what the state is doing.
And what other, our
And-
businesses are
And the
doing.
city still wants to have some control over the acknowledgement on whether or not you're going to have an indoor or an outdoor facility. The city would still like that defined, rather than saying, there's 5 acres, you may grow marijuana any way you want. The city would rather not do that. They want to say, in a building, out of a building. We want to know what you're going to do. Or both. We just want to know in advance and get a permit to tell you, so you can't change horses in the middle of the ride. You're going to have to say, okay, this is the way I'm going to do my business. Okay? So I guess I don't see the problem, and I'm not trying to argue because you know more about this whole business than I do, but it seems to me that we are doing a better job for the public that is going to be running these businesses to open it up more broadly.
And they are. They are. That's part of what this is, to open it up more broadly, actually to more align us with what the state requirements are, right?
So do we have any reason
It's
not
the
to?
state allowances.
I'm sorry?
It's the state allowances, not so much the requirements. When the law was passed years ago, Coolidge didn't decide we were going to do marijuana here. The voters of Arizona did. the law allowed cities to govern where it could be done and what the conditions of doing it were.
Right.
But I don't believe that you were permitted to have exclusionary zoning for a state voter-approved legal thing. You could just control how it is. I'm not positive on that.
I thought with this specific, you could actually, as a city, say, we're not going to allow it in our city.
I believe that's true.
'Cause I know
believe
some
that a
cities don't
city
have
would
it at all.
the right to make a decision.
So I think you could do that. I think
That,
that's,
yeah, I mean,
And we made the decision as a city that we did want to allow it, and we wanted to promote it, and it's a good business.
at the time, and one of the reasons was, but if you did not approve it in your city, then people had the right to grow it in their house. And that would be a huge, the council at the time saw it as a problem with enforcement and other issues. They'd rather have a dispensary where people could go buy it, and then in that way that you could go buy it at a dispensary, but it didn't open it up to all residents to just be able to grow it in their houses.
Right.
So there was a limit on
You
the
have to
on
be
the distance.
25 miles away.
So at the time, it was trying to allow some things and that voters approved, but also in how it was done and also for law enforcement purposes. That's how we looked at it. And I can say I was on council when we did it. So I'm just telling you, that's what my thought was at the time. So.
and I mean, that was not without some controversy
Oh, yeah,
and
we-
dissent
with a lot of
either.
stuff. Yep.
This is
It's
a
new.
subject where people run hard either way, or some don't care. I mean, like everything else nowadays, I guess. But the amendment, as presented and crafted, it is staff's opinion that this has the best chance of being approved and becoming effective.
Let's run
But
with it.
it's our
It's only
recommendation.
$600, man. It's that filing fee.
It's $1,000.
Okay,
But
it's $1,000.
again, the commission can recommend changes to what we have presented, how they see fit,
I'm
and see
good
where
with
it
it.
goes.
I'm good with it. Let's open this up to public, see if anybody
Yep.
wants to talk about it.
Are we good?
Yep.
All right. At this time, we'll open this up to a public hearing. If you'd like to come to the podium, speak on behalf, please do so. You're the only two, so. Okay. At this time, we'll close it to a public hearing and we'll entertain a motion.
Chairman Helby, I move we approve Cool PZ 20-11-44.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right. Carried. All right. Reports from the chairman. Sorry, I didn't mean to make that so painful.
No,
No, it's fine.
I don't mind a discussion or debate. That's what we're here for. I have no personal ties to any of this.
I just want to make sure we do it all right.
I like to give things their best fighting chance. And I also follow direction given,
Sometimes.
mostly.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Because we're on record.
forget
You guys
that.
be careful, we're on record.
All right. Director Lopez,
Yes.
what do you got
Chairman,
going on?
Commissioners,
Yes.
yeah, we're really busy. Obviously, we've got a lot of exciting projects coming up. I think hopefully we'll bring another Burger King to you next meeting. I can't talk. But it's scheduled for the next meeting. You may see another one. A different location, but people are still wanting to see Burger King, so that's pretty exciting. The one at
Forward where it was?
no, this is in front of Safeway.
They didn't like that
Potentially.
lot, right?
Potentially. So it hasn't.
A whole different,
Yeah, it's a different franchisee. So, yeah, the first one didn't go through it. And not to say it couldn't go as a different type of fast food place, because it's already been approved. It's got a nice site plan and everything. So you never know. Never say never for that location. But this is being proposed up at Safeway Plaza. If everything goes through, they haven't formally applied yet, but that's potentially coming before you. Because we see a lot of people asking about it in community chat. So, where's the Burger King?
if I could jump in real quick, since we're on record, and if anybody is watching this, I would like to stress that there is an approved site plan
Yep.
at that northwest corner of Arizona Boulevard and Buckeye Road for a fast food restaurant, parking lot, meets all the requirements, drive-through service.
And if you need to
It
do a
doesn't have to
study,
be
go
a
sit
Burger
out in
King.
front of McDonald's.
Yep.
It's a great location.
It can be any fast food restaurant that can utilize that location, and it's ready to pull permits.
It's a great location.
So-
Traffic would be perfect. The lights are already there. I mean, everything about that is an awesome location.
It's already been through this.
Yep.
So I just want to make sure that if anybody's watching this, that
They hear it.
put a feeler in someone's ear.
With our other hat of economic development, we're proposing that for anybody else that's interested, so you never know.
That's,
But,
got it.
so that's exciting. And then we have, of course, Nicola, you've been out there. They're going vertical. They're working on also on building 100. And so 200 is already, I think the sides are going up on that. So everything's tracking really well on that. It's moving forward. Yes, sir.
Air handlers on top.
They are on top. There was a crane putting them up there. So everything's tracking really well. We're doing everything we can to help them, and we're working very closely with them. They do electronic submittals to Stantec, and we work through any of the bugs, and everything's going good. So, and we have other projects that, I've told you this before, they're under NDA out there in that area, so we can't, those are non-disclosure agreements, so we can't really go into those, but those take, sometimes the big projects like that, they could take years. There's some that I've worked on 2018, 2017, and they're coming back. All of a sudden, the ACA will say, hey, project so-and-so is back, and we're like, okay, which one's that? So we're looking through, oh, great, that'd be great if we get that. So then we put in whatever information they need, and then so does everybody else, and hopefully we'll land them. So we're working through a lot of projects right now. And of course, Carol gave me some updated numbers. Staff has been really working hard on these. Just to date right now this year, we have 270 single-family homes, I think Carol told me. And other permits, we have 352 we've issued to date. So that's a lot. And we had a lot in January, February, March, a little bit down, but they kind of come in groups as they open up. And Richmond American is taking down Cross Creek, I believe. So they're already, are they ready to pull permits, pretty much?
Richmond is in master plan review.
So as soon as,
Stantec, so
once that gets done, they can start pulling
first or
permits.
second. Yeah, so they're in second review, which means red lines are getting
Pretty close.
addressed. They come back theoretically approved. They pull permits and start going. They have
Start going.
permitted their modular sales office building and some signs and stuff out there, and so
Yep, we're
they
getting ready.
they probably have house permits before we see you next month.
Yep.
Oakwood Homes also is in there.
On the east side, yeah.
No, same side. South of where Richmond is, they're not quite as far along. They've started doing some sign permitting, and they're getting ready to turn in their design review. We should be able to get through that fairly quickly, I hope. And then they go to master
The
plan
west side?
and then permitting. They're got a map in there. Oh, so Richmond is kind of up here. Oakwood is going down
Oh,
here.
in the front, okay, yeah.
And then we've been talking to a couple other builders that are looking to go in that east side, but there's nothing official or submitted yet.
Richmond's already working on the place across from Coda Ranch.
Yeah, that's the village at Coolidge.
I believe their house plans and stuff are ready. I mean, they're approved and ready to go. There's some site issues they have to do there.
Lift station.
There's a sewer lift station in that development that was never installed. Well, no one flushing toilets in there either, so
Yeah.
just to be able to get going, some of these things are working through Public Works. There had to be some seal coats and stuff done to the roadways.
Fencing.
The block wall on that west side is not much of that left. So just kind of some little things. Their landscaping plans have been approved, so they're moving in there. They have a sales office permitted in there. You should start to see some activity in there relatively soon also. D.R. Horton, KB Homes are plugging away still, Century complete. Still moving or Picacho Crossings, McClellan Meadows. Richmond's about done in McClellan.
And they're going into Los Abalas now.
Century Homes, it has pulled probably all of 10, a dozen or so permits, and Los Obrales, I think, it's either 23 or 36 lots in there that,
36, I think, but I'm not.
it was one of those numbers, I just don't remember which.
Thought it
All
was
single
36.
stories, nice problem, they're moving along in that. That one, at the rate they go, they might be done building there by the time we see you next meeting, but they clip along pretty quick.
Yeah, 'cause Picacho Crossing also has a lot of houses being built on the west side now.
Yeah.
All down that one street, and so all the rest of the lots, they've already poured their sidewalks on the other two streets to the south. So I imagine they'll start building there fairly quickly. They're approved for that whole area, and so they're moving forward. The only subdivision we still have that hasn't had any activity yet, it's the only one left, I think, is Gateway at Coolidge, which is behind Safeway. But they're still, we talked to the owners, and they're still looking to potentially do houses there. So we thought maybe if not houses, maybe something else could go there. But I still think there's a good market for houses there because of the proximity of fast food and Safeway. So maybe families that own one single family, one car, could just walk to the store instead. So if you don't have two vehicles, and anyway, that's kind of a discussion we've had.
If you could move the train, that would be good.
Yeah. But the train is, I've seen if you go in Chandler and you look at some of the areas, right, the train runs parallel to the big, Arizona Boulevard there, and you see $400,000, $500,000 homes right up against the train. So I mean, they just soundproof them.
That train don't come down that way very often, let me tell you.
Yeah, not too often, but it's still there.
Every
right.
once in a while, they
Yeah.
bring fertilizer down to the Indian reservation, but they don't come very often.
Yep. But yeah, so we see houses built. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of it. We got a lot of houses, still a lot of businesses going in. There's some things where the airport's moving forward. They're using all the buildings out there for different things, storage of airplanes, just storage of all kinds of things, and so we have a lot of activity everywhere.
Speaking of the airport,
Mhm.
so I have a bunch of friends of mine that are pilots.
Uh-huh.
They're all blowing up my phone about the fuel prices at the airport. They won't come here because the
Oh,
fuel,
the prices, yeah.
because the fuel price is too high.
Yeah.
They'll go to Casa Grande because it's cheaper.
Right.
And when you're, pumping a couple thousand gallons of fuel,
Yeah, no, we'd love the
every
price
penny
to be
counts.
down. Just we don't control the price. of
Yeah,
the
my
fuel.
guys from the Warbirds,
Mhm.
guys that fly the B-17 and the B-25,
Oh yeah.
all those, they want to come here.
Sure.
In fact, they wanted to come this last Saturday, and
It was good flying.
Yeah, I know.
very nice.
City doesn't set those prices.
I know.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah.
Different.
Well, we sold those tanks, right?
Well,
Didn't we sell that contract.
the tanks are actually paid for the city.
But we still pay for them.
Because, what happened is, grant funding was used, I believe. But anyway, what happened before is that those underground tanks were a problem. They were leaking. So we had to, as a city, take action to remove them and bring them
Put
up.
them above ground, yeah.
The fixed-based operator is the one that has, through contract, the rights to sell the fuel out of those tanks. Now, in the future, if there's an opportunity for the city to actually
Get that back.
get those tanks or install other tanks, we could probably do that. So there's a lot of, we're going through, and I think if you're interested, we're going through the master planning process for the airport. And I think we've sent some of you, or all of you, I don't know if we already got one, I think you probably did, an invite to sit on that committee if you'd like. And it's just a diverse group. And I know different people, I think they sent them out or it was advertised. And so I know I've got people that, for the Spaceports Alliance I work with, that we're looking at in the future a potential horizontal spaceport out there, and we're going to put it in the plan. So when that opportunity comes up, and we're talking like faster jets that were there in the future that could land here and deliver product, like to deliver UPS or FedEx or somebody like that.
Oh, yeah.
The future has a lot of exciting opportunities, so we don't want to miss anything. So we're talking to those guys, and we met with them a while back. Our airport has the best opportunity for that type of landing because it's protected by state land, where a lot of other airports have a lot of houses right around it. so ours do not.
There's
And
a lot of advantages to our
Right.
airport.
So it's also listed as a regional airport by Pinal County. So there's a lot of opportunity, and we want to make sure it has everything we can to make it go forward. We're working on additional power to the airport. We're working on
know that's
Arizona
what-
Water.
That's what makes it desirable for a couple customers I brought out.
Sure.
Rick and I toured around.
Yeah.
Was because it abates that state land, it's more restricted airspace, and that's where these guys need to fly anyway.
And we toured the Arizona Commerce Authority, the people that specialize in aerospace. They toured the airport, so anything that comes up, they bring them to us, see if it's a good fit. So we talk to them quite a bit. So that's all.
I noticed that we've got some gliders working from out there now, too.
That's the Air Force.
Yeah, I don't know if it's part of CPS or if they're just separate cells. James Myers would be able to tell us.
Yeah, they're Air Force trainers.
Okay. They're separate? So our expert back there, Carol says they're separate.
Yep.
He knows, he works real closely with James Myers at the airport. So that's all I have. It's a lot.
Awesome. All right. So we get out of here, guys?
Take a
All
motion
right.
that we close.
One more last call to the public.
Excuse me.
Last call to the public. If anybody'd like to come to the podium and speak, one last time. All right. Now we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.